Hello and welcome to Man Enough. We're doing a special 4-part series along with our friends at Healthline called No More Silence, where we are talking about breaking the stigma around men's mental and physical health. I am Justin Baldoni.
I'm Liz Plank.
I'm Jamey Heath.
I'm Yolo Akili.
And so happy to be with you all today talking about this. This is so important.
You talk about this issue a lot, body dysmorphia and body image and masculinity.
Yeah, we're just starting. We're just throwing it out there.
I know.
I mean,
Why
might as
not?
well.
Let's just get right in.
We're breaking the silence.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting that you talk about this, because typically one would think with your body and your physique and how you walk and all that stuff, that how could someone like you have that feeling? So I think that you have some thought about that.
It's interesting. I mean, it's a really strange place to be, because I recognize the immense amount of privilege I have also. Like, I also recognize how lucky I am, which means that there's a dissociation between like my body and my mind, and there's a bit of a like cognitive dissonance here, because I should recognize this and I don't, which means that it's an illness, if you will. As an example, if you're just listening to this and you're not watching this, I'm sitting next to Yolo, who is extremely handsome, and I'm looking at his arms and his posture, and I'm like, damn. And I'm constantly in my head being like, why can't I sit up that straight? Damn, he's a yoga teacher. He's got all this, and I'm uncomfortable, and it's just what my brain does. But I'm not allowed to say that. There's no space for me as a man to say that, because of the definition of what it means to be a man. I'm not allowed to complain about my body. I'm not allowed to have thoughts about my body. I have never been allowed to, which I believe is one of the reasons why we never talk about it. We police women's bodies all day long. We sexualize and objectify women's bodies, but me as a straight man, I've never been allowed to share that, because it's met with, oh, bro, oh, you and your six-pack, oh, good luck. And then it's further reinforced by the fact that as an actor, I play these roles where I'm objectified and sexualized, where they're literally writing my character's abs into the script, with nobody thinking about the fact that I'm a new dad, I'm a husband, I have a job outside of that, my career. I don't have time to work out. How the hell am I going to get my abs to look like that? Because I know that's going to be a GIF and it's going to be a video and all of these things. So there's a lot of pressure, and there's just never been space. I've never felt like there's space, because whenever I do share, I am shamed for it, because I should be so lucky. But that all comes from socialization.
Yeah, it does come from socialization. And one thing I want to say is that, one, we're going to make space, right?
I appreciate it.
For all of us, wherever we are in this, body ableist construct, wherever we are located, and to recognize that even when we are in positions of privilege, it does not dismiss or deny the fact that we are human and still experience pain and have challenges. We can understand those challenges within the context of the broader systems we're in, and not minimize that your pain, your discomfort, your challenges are still legitimate and need care and attendance to. I think that's important for all of us to understand and know, and to find a way to balance in the context of the broader societal systems we operate in.
Can I have you on speed dial?
I think it's important. Another piece you said that I think is so important, you said like how you described it as the way your brain works, that you're constantly kind of comparing and assessing up other folks. And I want to offer that the way that your brain works in that way is also deeply informed by the ways in which we're socialized by capitalism to do that, right? To constantly be in competition, particularly as masculine folks, or not even just masculine folks, women, feminine folks experience this too. We engage difference always with the assumption there has to be a hierarchy, as opposed to difference meaning that, like, we can exist in like a continuum. Like, difference has to be, so who's better? Who's got the better butt? Who got the better abs?
There's a
Who got the
spectrum.
better, right? Like, and I think that like that's something that we're all grappling with and dealing with in different degrees in different parts of our lives.
Thank you for making space for that. I really appreciate that.
So, Jay, what do you do
Yeah.
to take care of yourself? Some ways that you can have a healthy life.
Well, the first thing that I'm doing, once I started recognizing how unhealthy it is, and for me, it as I write about in my book, Man Enough, for anybody who's watching this who isn't aware, my entire chapter 2 of the book is dedicated to body image. And up until, I think, recently, when you think of men or the word male, you would never put that next to the word body image. It just doesn't exist. That's a female thing. So already there is no space there. So one of the things I recognized is that so much of what I was consuming was reinforcing this idea that I was not enough as I am. Down to, if you go to the grocery store, if you're listening to this, next time you go to the grocery store, look at a magazine. Look at a men's magazine. What do you see? It's basically telling us all of the things we're not so that they can sell us all of the things that we should be. It's an industry, like any industry. It wants us to feel insecure so that it profits off us, which is what we have been doing to women forever, right? But now what's interesting is that us men are starting to be affected by it, right? I think what a recent survey said 43% of all men reported being unhappy with their physical appearance. 25 years ago, all of us were happy with our physical appearance, or at least we would not admit that we weren't. So one of the things that's been helpful for me is I talk about it. And what I found interesting is, thanks to my privilege and platform, when I talk about it, I can't tell you how many messages I get from men who are like, oh my God, thank you for saying something.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was alone there. Why? Because the greatest myth of masculinity is that we have to do it alone. We're alone. Real men don't ask for help. Real men don't go to the doctor. Real men don't have problems. Real men aren't insecure. Real men don't have erectile dysfunction. You name it. Real men fill in the blank. So as I've been going to therapy and doing work on it, for me, it all comes down to trauma. It all comes down to my experiences as a boy, the way I was policed, shamed, what I was comparing myself to, what I was consuming, the action heroes that I looked up to, all of it. I've been programmed to believe that I'm not enough, even when I am. And my specific type of dysmorphia is muscle dysmorphia. It's not body dysmorphia. It's muscle dysmorphia, which is a phenomenon that I believe, and I would argue, 90% of every man in any gym you go to in America right now has, except we've normalized it. Why? Because we live in a patriarchal society, and as men, we get to choose what we normalize, and we've normalized all of us men having body image issues, eating disorders, you name it, in the sake of 7 to 8% body fat or chiseled physiques and all of that stuff. So I practice something called the why ladder, which is why. Why am I wanting to watch what I'm eating? Great. Then why again? Well, 'cause I don't feel good in this shirt. Oh, shit. Okay, why? And then when you get to that third why, whatever it is, it'll tell you the root of the problem. And we're not trained to ask why. So what I've found, why do I want to work out? Oh, I'm tired today. Okay, that's great. Why? And then you find out I'm overworked, whatever, you get to the root of the problem. There's nothing wrong with going to work out, but if my answer is ever because I don't feel good or I don't like the way that I look, then I know that I'm not addressing the root of the problem and I'm working out for the wrong reasons. So for me, it's just about understanding and knowing. I love working out. I love being fit. But when I think about that, I know I'm coming from a place of lack and I'm never going to feel good about myself, no matter how many abs I have or how much I restrict my eating, because I'm coming from a place of lack and scarcity and not from abundance and love. I'm coming from a place of not being enough. And as long as I come from that place, shit, I'll never feel enough.
And Yolo, I feel like you're an extremely healthy, and not by healthy, I feel like it sounds like healthy in the toxic way
Balanced,
that you're talking
right?
about.
Maybe.
But you're an extremely balanced person. So how do you, for the listeners, and maybe even for Justin, for these issues, how do you approach your own, or do you struggle with body image, and how do you heal from that?
Yeah, I was gonna say I love that you made that assumption.
Well, it's based on your previous response about how you have a healthy lifestyle. So I'm curious if this applies to body image, because I'm sure it would help a lot of people who are listening.
No, it's interesting. I love everything that you shared. I have struggled with and continue to struggle with. And I know, and I will say that and you really hit this on the head, is that for me, my relationship with food and my relationship to the gym, I had to realize, what am I using this as a coping strategy to avoid?
Yep.
And for me, it showed up in being desirable, being wanted, and recognizing that wound and how that was connected to not only intimacy, but also even my own childhood stuff, right? That I was always, and I feel like for a lot of men, a lot of women, a lot of us who are chasing these body images that we've been sold by capitalism, is it's about, if I don't look like that, no one will want me. Or someone might abandon me because I don't have that body type, because I don't look like that. And that is the real, for me, and for many of the experiences that I've had supporting folks, the wound that we have to attend to. And I think as we attend to that wound a little bit, then we get a little more space where I'm like, I'm gonna have some potato chips. Okay, exactly. I'm gonna eat this bacon, because guess what? I'm still desirable. I still have other qualities about me that are desirable besides this sold image of a physical body to me, And so I think that we have a collective healing that we need to do for all of us, around our bodies. And it's not going to be immediate. It's not going to be overnight. We're going to struggle. We're going to backslide on it. But I think opening up about, when we don't feel wanted and the fear of not being wanted. Think about a lot in queer communities too, like the rush to be super chiseled in queer communities is so intense.
Yeah. Can you talk about that? Yeah, how it's specific to that community.
It makes sense though, right? Because when you think about it, if you're a gay boy, particularly in this country, you are at risk of abandonment at every single moment. Your family might not want you.
Yeah.
Mom and dad didn't want me. This guy may not want me. My school didn't want me. That's who I am. So can I do everything in my power to prove myself as desirable in whatever capacity I can? And if it's physical, if it's financial, if it's labels, I'm going to do what I can. And we see that happening with all of us, right? And so I think there's a core wound that we are constantly being hit with in this world when we go to see the magazines and television. And I think it's changing a little bit. You're seeing more body diversity, but I think we have to start addressing that wound of our fear of not being wanted and desirability.
And I think there's also, we've had some conversations on Man Enough with some friends in that community and also the trans community, and there's the also element of protection I think is important to look at.
Absolutely.
Right? Am I going to be big enough to protect myself?
Am I going to pass? Am I going to pass to protect myself? Right? Am I going to be perceived as cisgender so I can be safe? That's also a very real thing for many trans women, for trans folks, right? So there's so many dimensions of it. But I always think, you said the Y ladder, and I love the Y ladder because I actually do that a lot too. I was like, I do that too. And I think the Y ladder, and in addition to that, I always ask, how is this something I'm using to cope? And if I am using it to cope, what am I running or avoiding from?
Exactly.
And that's what I start asking myself. And it's really interesting, the places that I get to that I think that I'm so evolved from. I'm like, oh, I couldn't be. Yep, you're there. Okay.
But what's interesting is if you're listening to this or you're watching this idea of the Y ladder is not, you don't have to sit down for 5 minutes. This could be a 10-second, 30-second thing. And what it's really doing is teaching you and yourself how to just check in, which is not something that we as men has ever been allowed to do. We've never been taught to check in with ourselves or our bodies or our feelings and ask ourselves why.
Yeah. And it's so important too. I say that the why ladder or the why question is so important. I always tell people that everything has a root, but every root isn't rotten, right? That's really important. People scared, like, oh, it's bad. It's like, well, every root isn't rotten of something, but everything is rooted and connected to something. Because our coping strategies are really just ways in which our central nervous system, our brain, our bodies are just trying to heal from something. Survive. Thank you for saying. And so sometimes we have to be like, we recognize that certain coping strategies are what we needed at a time. But maybe we've outgrown them. Maybe we don't need them. They don't serve us anymore. And so now we need to be like, well, this isn't helping me get my needs met anymore.
So one of the things I've been doing recently, and we'll wrap this up, is through my own therapy, I learned that over the course of my life, I've hated my body because I felt like my body has disappointed me. It's failed me. When I pull a muscle, I lost scholarships because I tore my hamstring. It's failed me because I wanted it to be a machine, a robot, and bodies aren't meant for that. And this idea, this culture we're living in, this socialization that we have to grind ourselves. What are we doing? We're actually wearing ourselves out so that we die younger. So I have been practicing compassion, which is a radical thought. If the first place my eyes go to are my abs, which I don't have my six-pack right now, I'm going to hate myself. But I need to find something about myself I like. So reminding myself I'm enough in the mirror privately when no one around is something that I'm practicing right now as an actual step to heal a lot of this. And then the guilt or the shame if I don't go to the gym, if I decide to eat a pizza And I'm like, you know what? I just ate a whole pizza. Oh shit, I must be eating my emotions. But you know what? It doesn't have to become a shame spiral. I don't have to make myself feel terrible afterwards and then not eat for 24 hours and disguise it as like, fasting for the sake of, whatever. I can just be a human being and give myself some grace and compassion. So if you're listening to this and you identify with any of it, practice asking why, and then give yourself some compassion, because you're not a robot. You're a damn human. We're not human doings. We are human beings. For more men's health information and resources, you can find us. Where can they find us, Liz?
At We Are Man Enough on Instagram or Healthline on Instagram.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm Justin Baldoni.
I'm Liz Plank.
I'm Jamey.
I'm Yolo.
And this is Man Enough with our friends at Healthline.
Yes.